So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this morning, I'm delighted to have with us Steve Farmer, who's CEO at Alconex. So, firstly, Steve, thank you for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, Alconex, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chris. Really looking forward to this. So I'm Steve Farmer. I'm the CEO of Alconex. We're a multi-utilities business, which is in lay terms, we connect gas, water, and electric to people's homes. So we do an
Right.
awful lot of work on residential developments, but
Yep.
increasingly on industrial, commercial, large-scale developments as well. So yeah, we're the ones that are responsible for all of the holes in the road and the traffic lights the majority of the time, but it's progress.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, a very vital service, and has to be done. I'm sure to a level of quality that's really key.
I mean, exactly. Everything is really heavily regulated. Water, gas, electricity is pretty dangerous stuff. So, yeah, there are lots of checks and balances in terms of connecting onto the infrastructure. So, yeah, we're very proud of the work that we do. Very proud
Brilliant.
of the work.
And just so, from my understanding, what would the typical client for you look like?
So in the residential space, typical clients would be, all of the big players like Persimmon and Redrow
Good.
and Taylor Wimpey Northeast, Gleason's, all of the really large house builders.
Yep.
It's not uncommon for us to effectively work on large residential development sites. Some of these are multi-year projects where they've got anything up to 1,500 houses on them, which could be
Right.
a 8, 9, 10-year fit out, dependent upon how quickly they can sell the houses. So we've got a
Wow.
lot of long-term development, residential development contracts. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. So, Steve, maybe if we start looking backwards a little bit, and you could talk a little bit about your background, how you got into business, and why this particular one for you.
Yeah, so my background is I'm an electrical engineer by training. I tell people that I'm still qualified, but probably no longer competent. I've been sat in warm offices for far too long. I've spent 35 years in construction in the rail industry. So anything that you've got an opportunity to get wet and get rained on and be out in all weathers, but in safety critical industries. And my first venture into multi-utilities, if you like, the other side of the meter, was about 15 months ago when I joined Alconex in the summer of 2024. And, I must say I haven't looked back since. When you've landed on your feet in an organisation, I've got an absolutely superb team, which is great. Makes my job an awful lot easier.
Brilliant, brilliant. So, growing up, is this a sort of career you had mapped out for yourself, or did you have other things planned as a kid?
I always remember having a conversation with, it was my best mate's next door neighbour who'd started working as an electrician, and he was telling us how much money he earned. And I thought, wow, if I could earn £100 a week, I'd have made it. And that was my primary thing about, electricians make some decent money.
Yeah.
And that's how I ultimately wanted to get on an apprenticeship. It was all about the money. And of course, it's anyone that says it's not about the money is a liar. It still is to a certain extent. I'm not an eccentric millionaire. I've got gas bills, but I'm really, really proud of what I've achieved in construction, because it's a great way of essentially leaving a legacy, getting involved in major builds. I was involved in the 2012 Olympics and things like that. So it's a real vocation, and increasingly I've become an advocate for trying to get young people into construction, because it's an aging demographic in construction and utilities, and the career choices that people have got these days as well. It's a tough sell, telling people to go out in weathers that you wouldn't actually turn a dog out in, to pull cables in trenches on building sites. So, but it is a noble profession. We provide light, heating, and power into people's homes. It's nobody would want to move into an empty shell of a building until we've actually done the connections. So it's really great that since Alconex started in 2017, our total work bank is just over 30,000 homes that we've effectively secured and connected, which is, you know, a reasonably sized town full of people that we provided those services to.
Goodness, wonderful. And looking back, what are some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome in your career?
Well, you know, from a career point of view, I think anybody that it's a kind of love-hate relationship with all things construction and utilities. No 2 days are the same, which is what the majority of people love about it. Yeah. But the flip side of that is, you know, sometimes you get up and you think that your day is planned out and you get thrown a complete curveball.
Yep.
There are about a million things that can go wrong, including acts of God in terms of the weather.
Yep.
Especially this time of year, we generally end up getting about 3 or 4 named storms. So rather than putting cables in trenches, we're pumping water out of trenches. So I think really it's, you know, anything operating in that built environment where we've got the elements against us and we've got all of these kind of conflicting priorities. But you know, we do secretly love it. I think the people inside utilities and construction love it. Outside looking in, people think we're mad. But I come across a lot of people that wouldn't have it any other way. And there's statistically, the chances of somebody actually coming into construction as a career, the biggest kind of sales for that is word of mouth, family and friends. It's an intergenerational thing. You know, people speaking to their careers officer at school, their careers officer wants them to go to university and do something academic. And so, yeah, I've found myself getting quite passionate around what we can do in terms of getting more people into utilities and construction, particularly females and, you know, now Generation Z. We need the next generation of people to help us do what we do.
Wonderful, wonderful. And again, what would you say are some of the biggest learnings you've got about growing businesses in general?
I kind of like the takeaways that I would give to anybody from a leadership perspective is identify the right people, pay them the money that they're worth, and do not get in their way. It's as simple as that. That is the secret sauce for running a successful business. I think there are, you know, and of course everybody's different, and to be a leader, you don't need to please everybody. You just have to have enough of the right people to actually be in tune with your style of leadership. But that has really served me well. And when you, like I said at the top of the discussion, that I really landed on my feet going into Alconex, all of the passion, all of the, you know, the love of the industry was there, and all I've done is shine a spotlight on them. And I see myself as very much as a support function for the right people. So, you know, it's not about getting bent out around the position and demonstrating how important you are by holding things up. It's about just not getting in very talented people's way. And I think that that is the secret of good leadership, I think.
Love it. So motivate them, reward them, and get out of their way.
That's it. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And people love that. They love autonomy. You know, I read a book recently, and it was on about autonomy, and it said that everybody's got an inner Frank Sinatra. Everybody likes to do things. Everyone wants to do things my way. So if you are, I talk about commander's intent, being in command but out of control. So, you know, if we've got a intent to secure X number of orders or things like that, just give that to the people, and they'll absolutely find a way. You know, so yeah, I'm pretty passionate about doing things the right way.
That very much sounds that a big part of that will be a coaching approach, and I think you're aware we're a business coaching organisation. So I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you?
Yeah, so I've had probably maybe 3 or 4 very influential senior managers in my life that have, for whatever reason, seen something in me and steered my career along with the right kind of development and put that in my way, which I've been eternally grateful for. You can almost, you know, from a review concert point of view, remember the date and time and the things that were said, and you think that was a real key turning point in my career. And of course, now I'm in a position where I can get a kick out of that for doing that for other people in terms of supporting their development ambitions. I've also had a couple of kind of professional executive coaches as well that and the professional executive coaches are the ones that you end up having some really difficult conversations because
Yeah.
they don't put up with any of it, and they effectively hold a mirror up to you and talk about the egoic mind and really strips it quite bare. But I would encourage people to get themselves an executive coach because that's professional athletes have executive coaches as well. And if you take what you do seriously, so I'm a big fan and advocate of having either mentors in business or actually subscribing to, and it makes you feel an awful lot better as well because you get to have 90 minutes of, just really quoting from your own autobiography and have someone give you a listen to and challenge you at the appropriate points.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As you say, it's listening and challenge. Since you mentioned mirror, we often describe ourselves as mirrors, and we say, look, we'll hold a mirror up to your business.
Yeah.
But if you don't like what you see, don't blame the mirror. It's
exactly, and it takes a certain amount of that kind of internal confidence and self-awareness really because to a certain extent sometimes you get to, when you're a CEO of a business, to actually culture an environment where people feel that they can challenge and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And I think that if the scene is not set for that to be done, then you start to lose the dressing room because you start to believe your own hype, and you need people. And I'm very lucky that I surround myself with people that I've got that kind of relationship with, which is great because it keeps me grounded.
Yes, absolutely brilliant. And do you have any favourite, whether from the people you work with or not, any favourite quotes or sayings that you catch yourself using?
I'm full of quotes and sayings.
Brilliant.
I read lots of books. So we have all of the kind of usual plaques on the office wall. So we've got the Ken Blanchard. None of us is brighter than all of us. We've got General Eric Shinseki from the US Army. If you don't like change, you like irrelevance even less. And one of my favourite ones is from the Canadian hockey player Wayne Gretzky. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So, yeah. And there's plenty more where that came from.
Love it. Absolutely. There's some great ones there. It's interesting. Yeah, the Wayne Gretzky one, I know a very similar thing I said to somebody a little while ago because I asked if there's any chance I could attend an event that they were running, and I said because if you don't ask, the answer's always no.
Yeah, exactly.
and he said that tickled him so much that he got me into the event, which was wonderful.
Brilliant.
But absolutely brilliant. There's some great ones there. Now, what was the relevancy one was interesting. So if you don't like change.
So General Eric Shinseki was a US Army general, and I think it was a speech that he did on the eve of the First Gulf War, 1991-1992. And of course, I think that was the kind of like when things started to change on the battlefield. It wasn't the conventional, I know Russia's still fighting those kind of wars, but we've got more tanks than the rest of them. It was all about that intelligence of the battlefield. Yes. And it was part of that speech where it was effectively putting the US Army on notice that they needed to change. So if you don't like change, you like irrelevance even less. I think that there are so many businesses in the history books. You think about Blockbuster Video, you think about Nokia phones, you think about BlackBerry, that actually just, they thought we're onto a winning combination here. And they were, and now, of course, they're effectively irrelevant. So I use that a lot as a watchword in business, that we've got to stay ahead of the curve. Just when you think you've got it all sussed and all figured out, you've got to be cannibalize your own service offering. Yeah,
I know a friend of mine, Philip Pesketh. He talks about he quite often does the hockey stick curve, and he said just about every successful organisation, country, anything has followed that curve of massive success, and if you don't then go again.
Yes.
You fail. He talked about the Beatles, massive success, the Roman Empire, massive success followed by failure, and it's time and time again, and it's that desire and that need almost to reinvent ourselves, redefine what's next.
Exactly.
Is so key. Yeah. I think the other one that's sort of the military one that I love, that's not the same, but sort of as a second part to that is I think it's no plan survives first contact with the enemy.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's like, the
Yeah.
plan is
And of
important.
course, more recently, Mike Tyson's spin on that
Yes,
was everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's bang on, isn't it? It's absolutely bang on. And I know our founders, funny enough, that planning is one of the things he told me years ago, which I found really helpful, was he said the value of a plan is in the planning. And
Yeah.
what he meant by that was it's the what if scenarios you do as part of planning. So the plan
Yeah.
is the perfect way forward. That's if everything goes right, we'd love it to look like that. But
Yes.
at any point, if that goes wrong, I would imagine, as you say, weather is a potentially a big impact of
Yeah.
for a lot of people or whatever it would be. It's what do we do if? What do we do if? And you only do that
Yeah.
if you sit down and actively try to plan rather than just do the best you can and hope.
Oh, exactly. I mean, I see a lot of that in, from a business strategy point of view. I've kind of thankfully not been in those businesses, but I've looked on and seen businesses take 12 months to put a strategy together.
Yes.
And they think that the actual process of putting a strategy together is working on the strategy. It isn't, there's another saying around a plan that a good plan today is better than a perfect plan tomorrow. And they
Yeah.
spend all of the time dotting the I's and the lowercase j's, and they think that the presentation to the shareholders or the executive board members is the strategy. And I think it was McKinsey and Co. said that 70% of all strategies fail through poor execution.
Yeah.
And that is the strategy will get you to the starting line, but it's that disciplined execution of delivering a strategy. But
Brilliant.
you know what? That's why I love business. That's my
Yeah.
hobby.
No, me
I'm
too.
a Yorkshireman. I don't suppose Leeds United or football. I just love business.
Good man. Well, it's not a bad thing not to support Leeds United right now, unfortunately. But there we go. And you mentioned books earlier. Favorite books or podcasts on business or success?
I love they're not necessarily business books, but I love anything by Malcolm Gladwell. He's my favourite author.
Yep.
He did Outliers, so obviously you mentioned the Beatles. He kind of unpicks the secret of the Beatles' success, and it's the whole coming up with the concept of 10,000 hours, and they were playing for 7 hours a night in Hamburg, in Germany, early in their career, and honing their craft. But I'm a big fan of a guy called Robert Cialdini as well, that's wrote a great book on influence in terms of laws of persuasion and the whole psychology of getting people to give you a compliant yes in the way in which you can ask questions and what have you. So yeah, I'm an avid reader of all things business. Yeah,
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I love Cialdini's got two or three evidence-backed examples in there that are quite shocking, aren't they? Because they're going back to
Yes.
1960s when you could do things that you probably wouldn't do today.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's any,
Yeah. Sorry. Within his book, he talks about this. One of his PhD students, because he actually teaches at Stanford University, and he said that one of his PhD students, and this must have been 15, 20 years ago, he said that he went to the local phone box and he got a load of addresses out of the phone book, and he sent a list of complete random strangers Christmas cards. But because of the law of reciprocation, if you give somebody a Christmas card, you feel compelled to, if you get a Christmas card, you feel compelled to get it back. And this particular student had been exchanging Christmas cards with these complete strangers for 10 years since he'd done his studies. But it was they don't even know each other, but they were locked into this law of reciprocation. Some of the real world studies he does on influence and persuasion are absolutely superb. So I definitely recommend that as a read.
Definitely, absolutely fascinating. And following on and learning, what would you say you've learned about yourself throughout your journey so far, Steve?
I think I always say to people that, I've been in construction such a long time that I'm really, really good at receiving bad news. Really good at receiving bad news. And to actually position that, there's a lot said these days around psychological safety in the workplace, but I used to work with somebody in the 1990s and he did not like bad news. So we had a balanced scorecard, and of course, we had red lights and green lights. And he used to say, only half jokingly, that red blobs cost jobs. In other words, if you saw a red light on the balance scorecard, somebody was going to get fired.
Right.
So the majority of the time, the people in the business were trying to fudge the scores so that there was a green light. So if you give off lots of vibes that you shoot the messenger and you're not very good at receiving bad news, you tend not to get the bad news, even though
Yes.
it still exists. So I would say kind of one of my greatest learnings and one of my superpowers is, even though nobody likes to receive bad news, but I always say that bad news is like warm bread fresh out of the oven. It's not like wine. It doesn't get better with age.
Yeah.
I, I love good news, but if you've got any bad news, just tell me
Yeah.
straight away. I'll say a problem shared is a problem halved. And I think from a leadership perspective, people's ability to take bad news on the chin and not shoot the messenger,
Yeah.
I think that would be the kind of the biggest single piece of advice I would give to anybody that's in a leadership position.
Brilliant. Yeah. Take it, accept it, and act on it, and
Yeah.
make the change you need. Brilliant. And in Action Coach, we've got a phrase about a true business, which is a commercial, profitable enterprise that can work without its owners and leaders.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that as a concept?
Oh yeah, I think that is an absolute must, and I think it comes back to not necessarily getting in anybody's way. So the
Yes.
work that we've done within Alconex within the last 15 months or so, because it was born 7 or 8 years ago as effectively a startup. We've got the managing director who's now the CEO and still COO and still very active within the business. He's got a span of control of 17 direct reports, and of course you end up you get to a point of growth where the owner is the business. The owner's doing business development, the owner's sending invoices off, and actually, our job is to effectively try and delegate responsibility. And I often say that it's a terrible word, empowerment, but delegate responsibility to the lowest level at which that can reasonably achieved within
Yes.
the organization. And I often talk about myself as CEO as a support function. So I'm there in support, but you'd ultimately want the business to be able to run itself. And of course, I've got to a point in my life now where I like my holidays, and I know that I can go on holiday and everything,
Brilliant.
everything can run pretty smoothly without me, and I don't, I don't feel like I need to be all over it, because I've got good people that are up for it and motivated, that are working hard behind the scenes.
Yeah, I often say to people that are probably a lot less advanced than you guys, but I say you can get to a limited size of business with a few good people and sheer blood and guts. Just everybody
Yeah.
working really, really hard. We know what each other's doing. We're a very close team. But once we hit a certain limit, and that limit is primarily time,
Yes.
we become the blockage to growth, because if it's about how much time we give, i.e., harder we work, the more successful we are, then we become the limit. And without getting out of people's, as you say, getting out of people's ways
Yeah.
and standing behind them in support, rather than assuming that need to be in the front, driving things forward from the front, we become a bottleneck.
Exactly, and I think that I got to a point in my career where, and I don't know, there was imposter syndrome. You're a relatively young manager. You want to impress. You want to be indispensable. You're kind of hoping that the phone rings when you're on holiday, just so that you can draw your own value from that. But I think that that's the transition from like middle management to senior leadership, and it's just having the courage and the conviction to let go and let other people effectively do it. And some people can make that transition, and I don't think because I think what got me here is going to get me there. But I think there's this point at which you've got to start letting go and taking more of a back seat than wanting to be the front and center of everything.
Absolutely. When you've highlighted a book, almost highlighted a book title of somebody that. So I've been lucky enough to train with a guy called Marshall Goldsmith, who's renowned to be the top executive coach in the world. So he's coached the president of the presidents of Ford Motor Company, Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, the world, Dr. Kim at the World Bank, and he wrote a book that literally was "What got us here won't get us there."
Yeah, yeah.
And And it very much is that idea of we have to keep looking at how we step out of, as you said earlier, get out of other people's way.
Yeah,
And it's so key. But for me, it's logically makes sense, but it's a mindset and identity change, which some people do struggle with, as you said,
it
because
is.
because
Yeah,
I mean, most successful people I meet will say, understandably, they were told as a kid, the harder you work, the more successful you'll be, which is
yeah,
true to a level of to an extent. But
it
then
is.
it's really important. In fact, it was interesting you say that because I heard a lady called Jennifer Byrne speak a couple of years ago, and she was she's ex CTO at Microsoft,
Right. Yeah.
and she said in the US now, when they recruit C-suite executives, I'll get this right because they actively test them on their ability not to do things.
Right. Yeah.
And I found, and I could see all the people, including me, around the room going, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" And it was that.
Really counterintuitive, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
and it's like we've got to work through others now. Our job is to not do it, but to engage
Yeah.
and lead and support other people to do it. So no, absolutely fascinating. So obviously we had quite a significant development of the business over, like I think 8 years. I think you said since
Yeah.
you've funded it. So what does the future looking forward? What does the future look like for you guys, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any, Steve?
Yeah, I think, I suppose probably the biggest challenge to the business, and this would be probably for an awful lot of businesses, just making sure that we can continue to attract the right kind of people and resource to want to come and do what we do. It is not glamorous. We
Yeah,
cannot compete with being an influencer on Instagram or anything like that. It is pretty much muck and bullets. But
yes,
I would I would kind of, just in terms of where the business is going, we're doing an awful lot on the industrial and commercial side of things. We're getting heavily involved in solar farms and battery energy
I
storage.
wondered. Yeah,
So, just in terms of the kind of people that would have traditionally gone into a kind of like a vocation and maybe worked in the health service or social services. I want kind of young Generation Z people with a service and dedication to a cause to effectively come and Alconex save the planet. And I think that is a noble cause to effectively get out of bed for. So, and I think we're very lucky insofar as the work's going to be there. We're effectively selling what everybody's buying. There's massive investment in artificial intelligence and data centers, massive investment in the
yeah,
UK in respect of solar. Obviously, there's lots of these EV charging points and things. So all of these things are within our delivery portfolio. But I do kind of worry about, I think the average age within Alconex is 47, 48 years
right,
old. I've currently got more people over 60 than I have under 30 in the business.
right. Yeah,
So, and of course, there's no set retirement age, but obviously it is a hard physical job.
yes,
So, it's the biggest restrictor on our growth is not necessarily the market wanting what we've got to offer. It's finding the right kind of resource and engaging them, and really just tapping into that. We're essentially doing it to save the planet. As part of the
brilliant.
energy transition, which is
Yes,
I can't think of a better thing
no,
which would get people out of bed than being able to do that. It's much better than, and probably some of the listeners to this are bankers and things like that, but I'd much rather be part of the green economy and dealing with things like solar and battery energy storage than
brilliant.
dealing about with numbers on a spreadsheet.
Brilliant. Absolutely love it. And I'm keen to know what you say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now. What would be your advice?
Oh yeah, I mean, from a business point of view, I wouldn't pay too much attention to the budget on the 27th of November because next year there'll be another one and another one after that and another one after that, and it's one of these things. So I always say that I think it is. We're in a great country. There's lots of support and help out there, and I think that people like. I think it's the great British way that people like the underdogs to do well. So if anyone's thinking of starting a business, just absolutely go for it. And
Brilliant.
there'll be failures along the way. The road to success is paved with failures, but it's the ones that get up, dust themselves off, and start again.
Yeah,
I think it is a noble thing indeed to be in a position where you're supporting families through your business and your enterprise, and people can buy the houses and get on with their lives and go on
Yeah.
their holidays. I think it's a great thing to do. There's a lot of responsibility around it, but I think, I get a real kick out of business, and yeah.
Brilliant. And final question, what's the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do that?
I would have probably 18. I'd already done a lot of damage in respect of giving myself a good start. I never did as well as I should have done at school and going into effectively university. So if I could have intercepted myself a little bit earlier, I would have made sure that I got the right kind of education. I don't think I would have done much different, because even though the things that I now look on as failures at that point, I think that, then what I can do is 12 or 18 months later, link that back to an achievement that was born out of moving away from that particular failure. But I would definitely say, don't do it the hard way like I did it. Just get your head down at school. Don't be the class comedian and get a decent set of grades and get yourself off to university, or ideally a construction apprenticeship, because that is, a construction apprenticeship, it's paid learning. You're not going to have £100,000 worth of student debt, and you'll never go hungry if you've got a skilled trade in construction.
Brilliant. Absolutely. Very sound advice. Steve, it's been fascinating talking to you. So thank you so much for spending a bit of time. And for anyone that's watching would like to get in touch with you or Alconex, what's the best way of doing that?
Yeah, Steve.Farmer at Alconex. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm fairly altruistic with people I connect with. I've got a large network. I love to connect with people. Generally, 20 seconds later, they'll try and sell me something, but it's one of those. Yeah, I'm on all the socials.
Brilliant. And it's just being open to stuff, I think, isn't it? You just never know. You just never know that connection. Well, look, It's been fascinating talking, and so it'd be great to swing by another 6 to 12 months and just see how the next phase of the growth of your business is.
I love that.
Yeah, me too. But for now, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.